Okay, let's unpack this. You're hearing a lot about these new weight loss medications, right? Feels like something new pops up almost every week.
Absolutely. The pace is incredible.
Well, today we're really zeroing in on something pretty significant. The first proper head-to-head trial comparing two of the biggest names out there, Mounjaro and Wegovy.
That's right. We've looked through the reports coming out of this trial, which basically put these two blockbusters directly against each other.
Yeah.
And we want to give you the sort of bottom line understanding of what it all really means.
So our mission for you today, pretty simple. Let's cut through maybe some of the noise and understand the actual differences this study brought to light.
What are the key things to take away?
Exactly. And what might this mean for how we think about managing weight going forward? Because we're talking Mounjaro, we're talking Wegovy, names you definitely know if you're following this space.
For sure. They've both shown, amazing results on their own. But this trial, it gives us that crucial side-by-side look. So what's the main headline? What really jumped out?
The big news, really, is that Mounjaro came out ahead in terms of average weight loss in this 72-week trial. We're looking at an average of 20% body weight reduction from Mounjaro.
Which is substantial. And just for comparison, the Wegovy group in the same trial averaged about 14%.
14%. So yeah, a noticeable difference.
Right. As one of the articles summarized it, the first head-to-head trial of two blockbuster weight loss drugs has shown Mounjaro is more effective than rival Wegovy. It's pretty clear language.
It really is. And another source kind of backs that up, saying Mounjaro's 20% weight reduction after 72 weeks of treatment exceeded the 14% from Wegovy, according to the trial's findings.
Okay, so the obvious next question is, why? What's different about how they work?
Yeah, what's going on under the hood?
Well, it's fascinating, actually. Both drugs work by mimicking natural hormones, the ones that tell your brain you're full.
Yeah.
They help regulate appetite.
Right, the satiety signals.
Exactly. But the key difference, it seems, is how many of these signals they, interact with. Mounjaro seems to have a broader action.
Okay, so Wegovy targets one specific appetite switch, as some have called it.
That's a good analogy. One source put it like this. Wegovy, also known as semaglutide, mimics a hormone released by the body after a meal to flip one appetite switch in the brain, like, hitting one switch.
And Mounjaro, it hits two?
Precisely. Mounjaro, or tirzepatide, flips two. So this kind of dual action, hitting two switches, might be why we're seeing that potentially greater effect on weight.
Interesting. So it's not just slightly better, it suggests maybe a more significant result for more people taking Mounjaro.
Well, that's another key piece of data. The study found that 32%, almost a third of the people on Mounjaro lost a quarter of their body weight, 25% or more.
Wow, a quarter. And how did Wegovy compare on that specific measure?
In the Wegovy group, it was 16%, so half as many people reached that, really significant weight loss milestone.
Okay, that's a stark difference. Now, beyond just the number on the scale, what about other health improvements? Did they track things like waist size or blood pressure?
Oh, absolutely. And again, Mounjaro seemed to show a bit more improvement in several areas. Take waist circumference, for example.
Okay.
One report mentioned those on Mounjaro lost an average of 18 centimeters from their waistlines compared with 13 centimeters on Wegovy.
18 versus 13 centimeters. That's definitely something you'd notice.
For sure. And perhaps even more importantly, when you look at metabolic health markers.
Like blood pressure, blood sugar.
Exactly. The findings indicated that those on Mounjaro had better blood pressure, blood sugar, and cholesterol levels. These are, really critical factors for overall long-term health, especially when managing obesity.
So we're seeing greater weight loss, better improvements in some of these key health markers with Mounjaro. But what about the trade-off? Were the side effects worse?
That's a really important question. And interestingly, the data showed that both had similar levels of side effects.
Oh, really? Similar?
Yeah, which suggests that, at least in this trial, the increased effectiveness didn't necessarily come with a higher burden of side effects, which is, quite positive.
Okay, that is interesting. Now, something else caught my eye in the reports. Something about gender differences.
Yes, that was another observation. It seems women tended to lose more weight than men, across both drug groups, actually.
In both Mounjaro and the Wegovy groups.
That's what the reports indicated. It wasn't specific to one drug. It raises questions maybe about physiological differences that probably need more research.
Okay, so if you put all this together, what does it mean practically for doctors, for people considering these options? How might this shift things?
Well, we saw some interesting thoughts from experts. Dr. Louis Aron, for instance, he suggested something like the majority of people with obesity will do just fine with semaglutide Wegovy.
Okay, so Wegovy is still a great option for many.
Right. But he added, those at the higher end may ultimately do better with tirzepatide, Mounjaro. So maybe a more tailored approach depending on the starting point or the goals.
That makes sense, personalizing it more. What about Professor Naveed Sattar? He had some thoughts too, right?
He did. He basically agreed they were both good options, but pointed out that while many will be satisfied with 15% weight loss, many want as much weight loss as possible.
Ah, right. So for those aiming for the maximum possible reduction, Mounjaro might look more appealing based on this data.
Exactly. It highlights that individual patient goals really matter in this discussion.
And it sounds like maybe what's happening in the real world in terms of prescriptions might already be reflecting this.
Seems like it, at least in some places. Professor Sattar mentioned the UK private market specifically. He said, in the UK, tirzepatide sales privately are now well ahead of semaglutide. That's just a reality, and this paper will accelerate that, I imagine, he added.
Oh, wow. So the market's already kind of voting with its feet, so to speak.
Seems that way. Suggests people are paying very close attention to these results as they come out.
It just feels like this whole area is moving incredibly fast. Research must be ongoing constantly.
Oh, absolutely. One source flat out stated, a huge amount of research into weight loss drugs is still taking place. We're talking about looking at higher doses, different ways to take the drugs, like pills instead of injections,
Right.
and even entirely new types of drugs targeting different pathways. It's a very active field.
And the focus isn't just treatment anymore, is it? People are starting to talk about prevention, too.
Yes, Professor Sattar brought that up. He suggested, obesity prevention may also be possible soon, pharmacologically.
Using drugs preventatively.
Potentially. But he immediately added a really important caveat, arguing it would be far better to make our society healthier to prevent more people developing obesity in the first place.
That's crucial context. Addressing the root causes, the societal factors.
Exactly. These drugs are tools, but they don't exist in a vacuum.
Okay, now one really important distinction we need to make sure we cover. It's about what these drugs are actually approved or licensed for beyond weight loss right now. Because there's a difference, isn't there?
Yes, that's a critical point for context. While this trial compared them for weight loss, Wegovy has other established credentials.
Right.
As one source noted, Wegovy is also licensed for other conditions, such as preventing heart attacks, while the equivalent trials with Mounjaro have not been completed.
So Wegovy has proven cardiovascular benefits on its label already. Mounjaro doesn't yet. That could definitely sway a doctor's decision depending on the patient's overall health picture.
Absolutely. It's a major factor beyond just the percentage of weight lost.
And just for transparency, we should also mention who funded this specific head-to-head study.
Good point. Yes, the trial was funded by Eli Lilly.
The company that makes Mounjaro.
Correct. Which is, pretty standard for these kinds of pharmaceutical trials, but it's always important information for context when you're looking at the results.
Definitely. And just to recap the trial specifics for everyone listening,
Mm-hmm.
it involved 750 people classified as obese.
With an average starting weight around 113 kilograms or about 250 pounds.
And it ran for 72 weeks, using the highest tolerated dose of either Mounjaro or Wegovy.
Right. And these findings, they were presented at a major conference, the European Congress on Obesity, and also published in the New England Journal of Medicine.
Which tells you the scientific community is taking this comparison very seriously.
Definitely. High-impact venues.
So let's try and wrap this up. For you listening, what's the main message from this deep dive into the first big Mounjaro versus Wegovy showdown?
I think the core takeaway, based purely on this one trial, is that Mounjaro showed, well, a statistically significant advantage in terms of the amount of weight lost over 72 weeks.
More weight loss, on average.
Yes. Both the average percentage was higher, and more people hit that really high benchmark of 25% weight loss.
And the likely reason seems to be that dual action mechanism of Mounjaro, hitting those two different appetite signals in the brain.
That seems to be the leading hypothesis, yes. That broader action likely drives the enhanced effect seen in this study.
But it's crucial to remember both are powerful, effective drugs.
Absolutely. As the experts highlighted, both have a place. Wegovy is a great option, and it has that established cardiovascular benefit on its label right now.
Right.
So the best choice. It really depends on the individual, their health, their specific goals, and of course, a detailed conversation with their doctor.
It really just highlights how fast things are changing in this space. We have these incredibly powerful new tools. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
How do you see our whole approach to health, to well-being, evolving in the next few years with these kinds of medications becoming more common? What might the next big step be, and how will it change how we deal with obesity and related conditions?